Hi again. So we've created our first table and we populated it with a whole bunch of data. Okay, 300 sort of simulated auction listings. In this video, I'm going to show you how to start querying that data with a SQL select statement. All right, so when we clicked this little button here, which kind of looks like a spreadsheet, and it says view data, it generated this query for us. Select star from public.listings. Public, remember, is the name of the schema, which is the only schema we're going to be using. So we didn't have to add public, but we're looking at a table called listings. So if we want to create our own queries, we've got to click the query tool again and the query editor here. And here we can type select star from listings, semicolon. Postgres, you need a semicolon. Other databases, you don't. And hit the play button. This gives us every column, every row of the database: ID, title, description, start price, create dates, auction. Okay, and as you can see, there's a whole bunch of them. Now, 300 is not too much for this computer to handle, but one of the first things that I want to show you before we go too far into this is limit 10. Okay, if I'm looking in a new database and there might be 3 million rows of data, and I'm trying out a query and I don't really know what the result's going to be, I always add this limit 10 thing at the end, just to see, what I get, the first 10 rows that come up. Okay, so here's your first query. You can break it up on multiple lines, which I usually do, at least when my font is not blown up so big, and that allows me to see some of my data. Okay, you can take a look at this silly fake data I made up. Bronze-plated comic book came up, right? So I just kind of combined some adjectives and some various product types to create data that might be on our silly auction site. Okay, so that's your first select everything. What the star actually stands for here is which columns you want. So we could say we just want the title and maybe the start price. Okay, and so here we get just titles and start prices. Okay, so let's say we're building up a web page and we just want to have the list of products. We don't want the description. You can do something like this. So you can pick your columns. Now, you typically don't want your entire database as well. You want to filter it or sort it in some way. So we can do order by start price. Okay, that's a common clause that we add to our queries, is that order by clause. Okay, so we've got basically the 10 products with the lowest prices in the entire database. If we didn't have limit 10, we get the whole thing sorted by database. Okay, sorted by price. I'm going to drop that right now. The other important clause is a where clause. Okay, if we want to get a specific row of the database, we can do something like this, where ID equals, I don't know, 150. Okay, we're going to get row number 150 and run it. Okay, so row number 50, we got the title and the start price. It's a refurbished action figure for $400. Okay, or we could combine the star. Okay, we get all the data from that one listing, which we might if we're building up a web page. Okay, you can also do this with text. This equal sign with text. Remember the single quotes. Let's go with seller name equals Pete K, since we know he's in there. Okay, Pete K has 3 products. An antique quilt, an antique action figure, and a refurbished action figure. Okay, so you can match text. So this where clause is very, very useful. The where clause doesn't have to be an equality. It can be an inequality. So let's say where create date is less than today. Okay, so 2020. 0217. I think that'll work. I think it will interpret this as a date. It may see it as a text string. Let's see what happens when we push the button. Okay, yeah, it figured it out. So it's showing me all the auctions. In fact, 283 of them. Oh, I didn't want the create date. I want the auction end date. Basically, I'm trying to get all the finished auctions, and there are 270 of them. Okay. You can also throw an and in there, where auction end date is. Let's go to say, let's have it be greater than today. It's ending after today, and is less than 2020 02 24. So things that are ending in the coming week, for me anyway. Okay, and we get 6 auctions that are ending this week between 217 and 223. Essentially, I didn't put times on there, so you have a couple that are happening on the 17th, because it kind of interpreted that I meant midnight. Okay, so you can do a greater than, a less than, and with text, we can do what's called a like query. Okay, we can do sort of partial text matching. So let's say I'm interested in tools, I'm interested in hand planes. So I can do where title like % is the wildcard character, hand plane. Actually, I don't know if the capital letter, if it's capitalized in there. And what this will do is it'll find any auction that has a title that includes anything and ends with the word hand plane. Okay, so let's go. Bam. It found 21 rows listing hand planes. You can do I don't know, anything that had hand in it, I guess. We can do this %%. So anything that has the word hand anywhere in it with wildcards forward and after. Okay, so you'll get, oh. What? Where a title like hand. Okay, never mind, don't do that. Okay. Did something weird there. If I do where title is like hand plane though, nothing will come up because I have no wildcards in there. Okay, so you got to put a % in there. If you want it to be case insensitive, add an I. I like means case insensitive like. So I can put a lowercase h and I can find that there. And I don't know what happens if I put the other %. It probably is interpreting this as some kind of a token. That's probably why it gave me an error. Oh, okay, it works with lowercase, works with I like. Okay, so this comes up with stuff that is handmade and stuff that has a hand plane in it. Okay, so I like is a very nice text matching one. So we've done the select star. We've picked certain columns. If you just want to do title, seller name, you can do that. But so far, every row that we have gotten a result from corresponds to one row of the database. We're just picking out rows from the database based on our where clause. One of the other types of queries we can do is what's called an aggregate query. And usually that is a sum, an average, count, could be minimum or could be maximum. Those are our 5 main queries, aggregate queries. Dash dash is a comment, by the way. So aggregate queries. This is not code. Min, max. If I put a dash dash, that means everything after this is a comment. It's for human eyes only. The machine ignores it. Okay, but we're going to show a few examples of these aggregate queries. So Let's get rid of our where clause. Let's do count of ID. So we're going to say basically how many IDs are there. Okay, there are 300. Okay, that we just got the number. The result is the number 300. Okay, select count ID. Let's do the average of what did I call the price? Start price. And I think this is supposed to be AVG. It is supposed to be AVG. That's another thing that databases are different. So the average of starting price is $210.30 to like 15 decimal places for some reason. Okay. What's the minimum start price? $10. What's the maximum start price? Okay, and let's see. We want to buy all 300 of these items. What's the sum of the start price? $63,090. So the point, one of the takeaways of this is if you use an aggregate query, the row of the result is not a row of the original data. It is multiple rows aggregated, squashed into one. Now you can do group by. So instead of well, let's say the average start price. The average start price, not for all items, but the average start by. Let's do the. Let's add the seller name and the average start price, and we will group by seller. So what we'll do is we'll get the average price for each seller. Okay, so somebody called Ella J. Her average start price is $202. Fred F. $180. Sandra N. average price is $46. Okay, let's also order this. Order by average start price. Okay, so now we see these. I wish this would be wider. We see them in order from the one that has the lowest average start price to whoever has the highest average start price. And it looks like there's how many different randomly generated. Now, what we don't know is how many. Ooh, I've managed to combine these two tabs somehow. Query editor, data output, they cover each other up. But what we don't know is how many auctions each one has been responsible for. This could be an average where it's just one auction. So let's also throw a count in there. Count. You could do count of ID. It's often easier to just do count star. It just means how many rows. Okay, count star. So we're going to get the seller name, the average price, and the count. And we could also order by the count star and the average. So we'll get all the ones that have one auction first, all the ones that have two auctions second, and then within that grouping they'll be ordered by average. So there's two orders. Okay, so all the ones that have one auction, all the ones that have two auctions. Okay, and there's a few that have 6 auctions. I don't really like that ordering. I want it to be the opposite. I want to count those that have the most auctions first. So DESC means descending. Order by count descending. Means start from the biggest number, go to the smallest number. And I want to order by the average start price descending. So I want to know who are the big expensive auction listers. Okay, and so Mary E has 7 auctions and the average price is $211. These 3 guys have 6 auctions and we listed from the one that has the highest average price first. And these guys have 5 auctions and we listed the highest one first. Okay, so these are some queries we can do. We've got the select clause, we've got the from. You always have the word select and you always have the table name. Group by and order by are optional. Okay, the where clause is optional. If I wanted to do just comic book listings, title, I like comic book. Okay, so we see 3 guys that have 2 comic book auctions, and everybody else that only has 1 comic book auction. So we filtered out everything that wasn't a comic book before we did the average and the count. Okay. So the select query is quite versatile. We're just using 1 table here. In future lessons, we will combine multiple tables. We'll be joining tables together. We'll be doing subqueries, queries nested within queries, which is sometimes useful. But just with the select clause, the where clause, the group by clause, aggregate queries, the order by clause, don't forget limit 10, okay, a handy clause. You can ask for this data in quite a lot of ways. So remember, one of the reasons I set this up is that if you are not using a database, if you're using, say, Excel to store all your business data, everybody gets the whole chunk, right? Everyone that has access to that database gets the whole chunk. You don't just give one person the name and the description, and other people have, the customer's credit card number, right? Everyone sees the whole chunk, whereas with a database, we define a query that says, give me just what I want, just what I'm asking for, and hide everything else. See you in the next lesson.